And then at the end, I ask you a question, and then you ask me a question.
Yeah, that's sort of how I'm planning on structuring it,
Yes.
especially once we get the few of our guests on, because that's where I want to also do the structure from there. But yeah, let's just jump into it. Welcome back.
All right, we're back. Let's get it, man. Finally.
But yeah, um, in this episode, we're probably more planning to dive a bit more into, let's say, the psychological side of things as well. And obviously, when it comes to people management, when it comes to hiring, when it comes to even the whole sales process, because essentially all you're doing is just trying to sell someone into doing whatever you want them to do. Even like if you think about it, when it comes to a story, like Ahmed and I were just talking about it, like even like, and there's a few concepts that we're talking about at the moment. Like, if you even conceptually think about a story, it starts pretty much the exact same way or a similar way. And also it ends in the exact same sort of way because there's always a conclusion that ends in either a happy or not generally like a happy ending. So, and then there's a whole bunch of chaotic middle part. And even if you think about it, it works the exact same way in like sales and even when it comes to one-on-one, like even speaking to people, because even you can say with your interactions, you've had like multiple different layers of dealing with people. And then there's just been a whole bunch of chaos within the middle. And obviously, because you're still within that whole story element, you still are building up to that like conclusion. And I guess we can call the conclusion is like when we die, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, and when you're talking about life story, for sure, everyone has to go through that 100%. But it's very nice to start it off with this in this way. Quick question though. When you begin a story, how, I guess, going back to psychology, depending on what kind of story you want to, you know, start with, how do you begin? Like, what kind of tone do you use?
Generally, generally, like as you've been saying, it either starts off, that's literally, we can go back to like the beginning of all beginning. It starts off like in the create, either like during the creation or the creation of the setting, creation of the characters. So then you can then get a better understanding of the characters from there. So it can even say, for example, our first podcast was like a whole getting to know who we are and what we're like, if that makes sense.
It was a conversational podcast, like the first one, the first episodes we had. Yeah, they were all conversation.
Yeah, and we're just introducing, getting to know each other, understanding what our strengths and weaknesses are, understanding what our flaws are, and understanding how to build up that character to create like a stronger branding in that, if that makes sense. So then people know what to expect after.
Yeah, branding for sure, and also a stronger version of ourselves. Definitely more articulate, less gaps, less, less fillers. I mean, hopefully with time, we get better and better, and we can go for public speaking.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Like, especially because we're essentially doing public speaking as we are at the moment, because we've had a
Yeah,
few guests on this podcast, and even you and I, just even though we're having just a general conversation, still essentially having the skill of like content creation through that public speaking. So we still are gaining access to that skill and getting those skill points where they need to be, if that sort of makes sense.
100%. Got you. Yeah. I mean, honestly, the best thing about public speaking is really that confidence that you gain. You don't have that stage fright anymore. A lot of people like going up on stage. Even you could be later in your life, right? Like you could be early, you could be later in your life, depending on your age. I'm not gonna, throw out any numbers, but it's a very common fear to have yourself speak on a podium in front of a large group of people. What I do to myself is always remind myself of how do I treat myself first, you know?
Yeah.
Even when I was like, you know, even when I was, let's say, in my own room, let's say a few hours ago, rehearsing for that public speaking session, I would still be at myself and reflect and, always be like, yeah, this is how I want to treat myself. And even when I'm in front of thousands of people, a whole country, a whole nation, this is how I want to treat myself, right?
Yeah. And this is
So
also
yeah,
when you can, all right, I'll let you finish off your statement.
yeah, I guess, but as I said, all in all, it's just going back to building that confidence, that character, building trust in yourself, and also later on with the people. If it's your first time public speaking, if it's multiple times, you build up obviously trust, the more you speak in public. And then that's it. People start vetting for you. They start giving you votes. If you're going for, like, let's say, trying to be a country leader, let's say, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And also what you also put there was a really good point, like, because you said about adapting that skill set and also like you also need to adapt that mindset to get that skill set in the first place. And as you said, like you can then, once you have that skill set available, you can then get access to doing more of those public roles, whether it's in community, region wide, even like when it comes to your province or your state, and then even like nationwide, like as we can see people do, like our prime ministers and people in power, and basically anyone who has access to a company who's one of those higher ups as well. Like you can even look at it like Ray Kroc for McDonald's, for example.
Mhm. Big names for sure. There's even, like, remember Bob Proctor,
Oh yeah, I love Bob Proctor.
Parliament's Proctor. He was on our podcast as well. Who else? There's a lot of people. We can think of even big guys like Alex Hormozy, or even what's the other guy's name? Andrew Tate. They're all public speakers, but they're on a different, like, platform and a different, like, medium, but they're still speaking to, like, thousands of people. Look at their confidence level. Look at the way they talk. They're so articulate. They don't have gaps when they talk. It's crazy.
No, but also I've just done that many repetitions. I've done that many videos. Like Alex Hormozy, how long has he been doing content for? Like the last 15 years, almost 10, 15 years.
Bro, he's been in the game for a good amount of time, and not just for content, but, like, even for business, for building relationships. I remember even mentioning how he, in his relationship with his wife, how they started, dating, how they were very, like, firm on their dating, like, rules and that sort of thing. It
Yeah.
was very, very deep, very powerful, honestly, for someone taking it that seriously.
But they even had like that same sort of not transitional, transactional relationship when they even first started. Like it was like, if you don't help me get my goals, if you don't help me with doing X, Y, and Z, this is not going to work. Like I remember Alex Formosi saying like he thought Layla should have left him, but she decided to stay with him because she believed in the vision. She believed in what they could achieve, like behind the scenes, because literally they were like, leave. He said he was like 26, 27 when this happened, but he pretty much moved back into her parents' house and he's just like, just leave me. And then she's like, no, because she just believed, I can't even speak. She just believed in him. She believed in the vision. She believed in what the relationship was capable of. And now look at them. They're like 35, 36, and they're absolutely killing it in the business game.
Yeah, they're killing it for sure.
And also, like a good thing to mention as well, it's due to their relationship, sales abilities, as well as their ability to hire and manage multiple different people as well. Like if you think about it, like their company has like, I think it's like 15 different people working for them, and it's got a whole bunch of like subsidiary companies underneath it because they run a private equity. And it's like how they position and basically have their still relationship be like a very, like, even like I've got told from people in the workspace, it's very much like a football team, like back in high school. It's very tough love, very this has to be done. This has to be executed this way. It's very, yeah, as I said, it's very tough love sort of relationship.
Yeah,
But
the
yeah,
transactional relationship. But going back to, like, our principles here, Denyon, like, we're very focused on these three things, not just health and wealth, relationships, but also the spiritual side too, right?
oh yeah,
Don't forget, we're all in this world for a temporary time. So obviously we like to mention big guys like Alex Hormozy, Andrew Tate, like, not as much him because he's a bit different.
Andrews, I don't believe in. Well, I technically can't say it, but he's made a few mistakes, and obviously taking
Yeah,
the
yeah.
gambling deal was not the
But
best
the
play you
reason
could have done.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that. But the reason why I mentioned Alex Hormozy specifically is because of this practicality and the fact that he'll tell you, he's going to give you advice. If you apply it, you will win consistently, right? If you apply his advice consistently, you will win. So if he tells you, like, this is how you manage time, this is how you manage your efforts, your energy, This is where you invest, completely understand. But the one thing that I guess Alex Hormozy, I would say, keeps more private to himself is his spirituality. Just because it's not something you can really, maybe he's not in that position, but it's not easy to communicate spirituality. Sometimes it's formless, it's abstract, it's you can't really put words to these meanings, right? They're just experiences in a way.
Yeah.
So totally understandable.
But also that's when you pay more attention from other creators because he's just put all of his energy, all of his attention into, from what we've seen, into the business side, not into the spiritual side. Like you did mention a very good point. Like when you look at other creators, as like to say like Sunny Faz, Beck Lovers, like even Taniko, they are very much focused on the pure, like the whole reason why we're in this world. Obviously, it's temporary. The whole reason why we're in this world is to basically be a servant to God, which is the most important thing, no matter where you are. It's like all the money in the world won't save you, or like no matter what happens, just focus on building up the relationship with God because this world's only temporary. Once you go to the afterlife, that's when it's more, or once you go to the next, I don't even know what the next stage is. Technically, we could say it's the afterlife, but
A good character that I like to look at these days is also Central C, because I feel like that guy has won it all. Like he has in this world a very good life, very rich, luxurious life, and he's also now Muslim. Like he was able to do the Ramadan.
wait, Central Sea's Muslim now?
Now he's Muslim. Yeah, can you
I don't even
imagine?
know that.
Yeah, yeah, bro. Just look him up. You could say he's posting like everything now in the Muslim tradition. Like he did Eid, like he finished the Ramadan, did Eid. Now he's like, back in the game, but I think he's a bit more serious now, and he's just starting, like people, you can't judge someone when you're just starting, like, yeah, that's got a long way to go. The spiritual path is a long path, it's a lifelong path, and it doesn't stop at death too. Spiritual path doesn't stop at death. The death is just your appointment with God. And then after that, he's, depending on your state and your deeds and everything, like for example, a guy like Central C, he's accepted Islam. If he dies tomorrow, he's Muslim. He set a good image because look how many followers he has. Look how many people he's contributing to, and with his music, his image. Although like people will say certain bad things, but that's for everyone, right?
Yeah.
He's leaving a nicer footprint now on Earth. If he leaves tomorrow, boom, like people are gonna say, "Wow, this guy, he, like kind of like Muhammad Ali, the boxer." You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty incredible. A guy like him.
Yeah. Yeah, I cannot get over that because I remember like, well, because one of my mates actually introduced me to his music, and it's all about basically drugs, basically meaningless,
Yeah.
like
Can
sex
you
and all that
imagine?
sort of stuff. And then it's just he's on a complete 180. But also, I believe as well the current state that the world's in, which has also brought him closer to God. And obviously, because he's also been through that phase as well where money doesn't mean anything to him. He can buy whatever he wants. He can live the lifestyle, basically glam it out as much as humanly possible. And it's like, he's just realized it doesn't matter at the end of the day. That all of it is just obviously, well, what is it called? I can't think of the word for it. All that materialistic stuff doesn't matter. It's more so about your connection with the creator, which is by far the most important.
Exactly, bro. Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, that's why we always come back to these three basic elements. Health, wealth, relationships. Super important to keep your life long, to keep growing, to have a vision, to transform for the better. You know, yeah. I mean, these are just examples that we mentioned. People will have their own examples in their own life, depending on where they are in this kind of life path that they're living on. And yeah,
But even as well, like I've noticed probably there's either two things that are the most, oh, probably the top three, which are the most common. Obviously, either you're born into it, you have like either a bad experience or you come running to God to try and solve your problems, which in my opinion, I'm
yeah,
just trying to think of a good way to word it. It works, but it doesn't work if you know it, if you sort of get what I'm saying. Like he doesn't solve all your problems. That's up to you, your action,
you
but
have to do like
God will guide you towards the correct path.
If you are sincere, definitely. Like if anyone is sincere with respect to God, Allah, then whatever you ask him, he's going to answer you in that instant. And if he doesn't answer you your whatever you ask him in this world, definitely he'll answer to you in the next world, right? That's how we
Yeah.
see things. But that's how things are. Because look at the bird, for example. The bird, he does his effort. Like he has to go out of his nest in the morning and go look for food and worms in the earth. If it's like good weather or if it's not so good weather, sometimes it's your neighbor putting in like some seeds in their tree house, like for birds, there's small tree houses there. These small things. In any case, who's looking after them, right? It's the
Yeah.
creator, right? That simple. So for me, I'm more concerned about people who claim to be like atheists or agnostic, and they say whenever there's an event that's going to happen, like a life changing event or life or death situation, they'll just be like, God, if you're there. And I'm like, how can you say that? Like, you have to be, first of all, you have to be real with yourself if you're going to ask God. And second of all, if you want your answers to be done for you, like in this world, then you better have proper behavior and good language when you're talking to him. Imagine talking
Yeah.
to your boss, right? You're gonna ask him, okay, can you pay me? If you're there, can you pay me? Like, what kind of language is that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. But this is also where I think it's important. You should also have the same sort of relationship with God as you do with your own father as well, because it's still one. I was like to say, depending on the type of person you are, it's still one of like tough love, but it's always for the best outcome for you long term, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Because the
sir.
only way you're going to learn is through test and through the gauntlet that he provides, whatever, no matter how like, how good or bad your life is, God will still test you. He's still doing it for the best, better of you long term. Because it's like, look, he's thinking of you when you're like, when you got your grandkids, when they got kids. How are you going to set a good imprint on them? And how are you going to basically put your family to move forward? How are you going to put them in the better position? Let's just say, let's just say if you had to restart, what would it make you believe your relationship with God? Why would he make you, let's just say, just scrape by, but still have just enough faith in him and just enough faith in yourself so then you'll be able to move forward because he's still setting you out that path. He's still trying to see how you react to certain elements or even not even react, how you sort of behave within those certain elements as well.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you got it all, man. Tops to you, Denny. Honestly, it is amazing, bro.
I
Amazing.
was just think just because you don't, I was just thinking because it's sort of like my relationship with my father. Like he won't do anything unless it's for like for the greater good. Let's just say I had to, if that's what it makes sense. Like he won't make my life like so easy. So, he won't, let's just say, buy me a house tomorrow or whatever, if that makes sense. But he will still be like, okay, let's work out a path. You still got to go through the hard path. We're not going to send you through the hardest path because of we know X, Y, Z event's going to happen. So let's just, create the hard path. You still got to learn. You still got to achieve. You still got to go from a different mental position, or you still got to basically alter your mindset to have a different mindset shift, or basically put you in a worse position short term to put you in a better position long term.
Oh,
So that's just sort of what I was thinking. Like, if that
yeah, it's
makes
the
any
same thing.
sense.
I mean, you're looking at it completely correctly, Denny. And it's also how you treat your father as well in that whole relationship. The way you treat your father, obviously it's not the same as God because God is a separate entity, but the way you treat your father will be an indicator of how you treat yourself and also how you treat God, right? Because
Yeah,
obviously he came before you and even your grandfather is the same thing. Now, how you can kind of learn from these people in your life and your family to continue, right? To continue the progeny, right, with your kids and your grandkids, right? Because they've done it before, so who can
yeah.
you? And you're part of the family,
And
right?
that's
Why
also
not?
where you brought up another good point. Like, you didn't say it, but you conceptually brought it up. Like they're doing something right, so you got to figure out what they were doing right to allow them to move forward into that position. And yeah, I'll let you just continue from there. I just had to say that.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I guess for me is you're saying like how they can make your life hard, but not the hardest because of XYZ event.
Yeah,
Think of how you can make their life easier so that you can live a better life. Because obviously you're coming, obviously you're the next generation. So if you can make their life easier, 100% automatically your life is gonna, no questions. You see, no questions about it.
Yeah. But also, you still need to make your life hard to make it easy. It's still that, we're going back
Yeah,
and
because
forth
it's a
into those.
path of, yeah, this path is not easy because obviously the devil doesn't like it when there's families, there's community. He wants to keep every person by themselves in the corner and secluded and depressed and all these bad like
That's why
negative.
they're also trying to separate us as well, because we're easier to conquer separated than united.
Yes, correct. That's part of, you see, like what's happening right now in the current state of the world. Like there's always gonna be the good versus the bad, and like God,
Yeah.
the devil. There's always, the enemy is clear to all of us. We're created, we're children of Adam. We will have the common enemy of like Iblis, the cursed one, the devil himself, that's
Yeah.
without a doubt. Like Devron, Devron is here. He's a big
No.
creator. He's a big creator. I can share it to you later. He has spoken a lot about Iblis, and he also, before he reverted to Islam, before he accepted Islam, he was a lot into black magic, sorcery, jinn, talking to jinn, all these things. And he even like he knows what he's talking about when he says these things. And he also has like, now he has his own brand, like he's doing his own business, he's married, and this guy's a fighter. He's a warrior, man. This guy's a
Yeah.
warrior. But like he's spoken a lot about that common enemy that we all have, which is Iblis, and that we should be fighting every instant of our lives till the death, until we meet God, pretty much.
Yeah. I
So
think
yeah,
also you covered also another good point there, as well as like you said, it's like good, like we got to be we got to be fighting basically the bad, but we got to keep the good. But also the bad doesn't exist if we come from a position, or if we come from a mindset of, this is also something I stole from Taniko, but I love this. It's just basically from a position of love everyone
yeah,
as well. Like,
yeah. This is
I was
also
just thinking
coming
that was like
from.
perfect. Yeah.
Sorry, Daniel, but I had to mention this whole position of love is the final state when you look at the path, right, to God. The final state is love.
Yeah.
Once you love and you live forever in the love of God.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? It's like even death, when it afflicts you or when it tries to, it feels like it's harming you, you just keep living because of that love of God that
Yeah.
you have. Which is like why I'm very like close with my Christian brothers and friends, like my Christian community, because the amount of love that they have for Jesus, peace be upon him, is incredible. And that love is like the same love that we should have for God himself, the one master, the creator.
I'm even starting to tear up over it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I completely agree with you on that as well. Like, I'd say even, yeah, especially this is when we can go even a bit more in depth into like the Christians as well. That's also why I don't agree, but against the more wokenized Christians, because they still come from a position of loving everyone, even though it's not done necessarily in the correct way, if that sort of makes sense. Like the woke Christians, if that
I
sort of
see.
makes sense.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see what
Because they're
you mean.
still pushing the propaganda, they're still the Trojan horse, but they still come in a position of love everyone. But also, this is why, like, as we said, like a perfect example, like the Christian communities, how much love they have for everyone, how much love they have for Jesus, how much love they have. That's also like the perfect reason why, like, I love like working with like Muslims and Christians, just because they come from that position of love and doing their best they can every single day. And it just builds up this whole community, builds up this whole culture of like, if you can provide that, it just makes life a lot easier, and also allows you to come from enough detachment that you aren't trying to control anything, because you're going to allow them. You're still coming from a position of love. You're still coming from a position of peace and one of gratitude, but you're not trying to like force, you're not trying to force your own belief system. You're just trying to get people closer to God.
Exactly. 100%. You're being a helper of God, which is in Islam what we describe Christians in the Islamic terminology. say Ansar Allah, helper of God, which literally what you're saying is exactly what it means is you're helping people get to know God or come closer to God or understand God or help God himself, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like we were all created here for one purpose, which is to serve the creator and getting closer to him and meeting him and eventually after our death, gathering under his throne, gathering under
Yeah.
him, getting to actually see him and witness him. And that was the sunnah or the actions or the path of our predecessors, right? The
Yeah.
prophet, the awliya, the friends of God, the people who were trustworthy, the siddiqeen, and the ones who witnessed God, the shuhada. So these are the people that, we always kind of set our path by, and we know like these are people we are looking up to. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Because we should just try and inherit what we should try and not in we should, yeah, I think try and inherit
Mhm.
the best we can their relationship with God, because the prophets have had the best relationship with God by being the messenger.
Exactly. They've conveyed the message. Yeah.
Yeah, like Muhammad, peace be upon him. Like his relationship with God and either Gabriel, Gabriel. How do you pronounce
Really,
him?
yeah, we say both too.
Yeah, it's like his relationship between all the three is probably like the perfect example. Same thing with Jesus, like as well. It's like you can't put words on it. It's probably the best way to say it. Like you literally can't describe it.
Experiential thing. It's lived by experience.
Yeah,
This is what I'm saying. I am underlining spirituality in this podcast. We want people to experience. We don't want just for them to live a practical life and it's just the outward without meaning, without inward. We can't
yeah,
have that because they're not aligned with their own path and it becomes a messy situation. But like
yeah.
thankfully, obviously now we have this podcast and we're gonna keep going with our guests and everything, hopefully in the next few episodes. And with better settings, better, lightings and everything, for sure.
And that's also why we've chosen our guests so particularly, because especially they've got either that spiritual element or they've like one of our future guests, like I don't know, he's just very, very much he's already built up that foundation with God even before he started doing what he's doing. And I know same thing with a lot of your guests as well. And then they'll obviously be shown. And it's just a very important fundamental, which I believe in the modern day people aren't prioritizing. People would rather prioritize the quick wins, the quick cash, the quick, you know, all the quick results. And honestly, the best thing you can do is just build up the relationships with people. Then honestly, as we said earlier, just come from a position of love, come from a position of gratitude, of peace, of joy. Like even like Jason said that like really, really well. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
always need to be grateful for a position that you're in, but you can bring your problems to God. Or what is it? I'm just trying to think of the quote that he told me. This is what Bob Proctor told Jason. You can bring you bring your small problems
Bring
to
your
a big
problems to
God.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bring your problems to God, and then what?
Yeah. So it's like you bring your small problems to God just because, I was just trying to think of the exact quote, but
You bring your small problems to God.
yeah, to your big God, because it's your problems are just gonna basically fall away. God's still gonna figure out a plan to like we all live by God's plan at the end of the day. So God's still gonna help you with solving that problem no matter what happens. And once you
Correct.
deepen that relationship with him and obviously come from a position of serving him and serving someone else, it's gonna completely just change that position of, oh, I've got all these problems or I've got all these big problems. Um, Let me just step back, come from a position of love, come from a position of being grateful that I even had these problems in the first place, because I don't know who else my age would have these problems. And then those problems start to deteriorate or like go away once you obviously solve them, or just through you even realizing they're not even like proper problems in the first
Yeah, and,
place.
and then after that, what comes after that? It comes responsibility, ability, able to responsibility, right? I remember Jason Solomon said, Your response." you're able to respond. You're responsible, right?
Yeah.
Response and ability, right? It's a two word in one. So what happens now is God grants you that ability, that capacity, you know?
Yeah.
We know that in our tradition, in the Dafqawi, which is like one of our masters in our path, he mentioned that the attribute of the slave is incapacity. The attribute of the slave is incapacity, but it's also nobility. Only when he turns to God, right? Because you are you're incapacitated by your problems. You don't see them. You don't sometimes you're blinded by what's in front of you. And then all of a sudden you turn to God and he grants you the vision and the capacity and even the knowledge and the light to see, okay, this is what I have to do next now. This is how I'm going to approach the solution to the problem. These are,
Yeah.
you see what I mean? And it comes to even staying in the present moment. So sometimes the Iblis, the shaitan, the devil tries to take you out from the present. He tries to steal your present from you and put you in a state where you're thinking about the past or overthinking the future. And then that's when he robs you of what you're supposed to be doing right now. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So then
But
what happens then? You turn to God. You ask God, what am I supposed to do now?
yeah.
Like because there's a thing is if you're really a slave of God, you should be acting according to exactly what he wants you to do in the present.
Yeah. And also, I think you touched on like a very important thing as well. Like he takes you from the present, he puts you in the past or the future. In the future, obviously, that's when we get the anxiety, or we get. That's why it's to call it like the anxiety demon or the depression demon, because essentially that's what he's doing. He's creating now something that you got to fight, something that you got to conquer, which now you got to basically look back on, and just people living their lives in that whole trap over and over and over again. But if all if you look at it from a different perspective, it's like, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? And how can I learn? Once you have that sort of mindset shift as well, and it's like, let's just say if God was to throw me back into, let's just say worst case scenario, this is a test from God. We go back in the anxiety or the depression demon. What can I learn from this? This should always be your state of mind. And then, like I even realized you become a lot closer to God when you sort of when you rely on Him as your ally in that, because it's sort of like, what would like, even, like, I think I heard it from, like, South Park or something. It was like, "What would Jesus do here?" or something like that. But it's like, even if you think of it, it's like South Park, but that still has a good perspective because you can then just apply it, even though they were trying to send the most, like, humoric, like, they're trying to just say it like a humorous sort of way, but there's something good to take out of it.
Yeah, there's a
What is a
lot of
good position
truth in
for me to do
comedy,
here?
so I completely understand. Yeah,
Pardon?
care.
Pardon? You just cut out there.
Sorry, I cut you off. Yeah, I was just saying there's a lot of truth in comedy, which I
Yeah.
completely understand the perspective of South Park. You know, or when you were mentioning, what would Jesus do here? What would God do here? That's something we say as well as Muslims. Like, what would Muhammad, peace be upon him, do here? Or what's his sunnah, right?
Yeah.
But it's not as simple as that. Like, you really have to go deeper and see, like, okay, what is it? Like, it's really, like, there's something written for you right now, and you're supposed to
Yeah.
do it. So, like, it's just coming back to that, and then you're saying, okay, let me turn my face to Allah again, and then see, okay, this is where, okay, I'm thankful now. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah. But I
That's
think
good.
as well, he'll always give the correct thought if you dive enough for it. Always give you the right belief if you dive deep enough for it. Or also that's why I think it's important reading the Bible, reading the Quran. Like, is that important? Because then you can come up from that perspective of what would Muhammad, peace be upon him, do? Or what would Jesus do here? Or,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, let's switch subjects a little. I mean, I don't know how we're doing on time, Daniel. Hold
we're
on, one
currently sitting at 33 minutes.
33 minutes. Okay, let's top it off with a final question. I guess
Yeah.
for you, Daniel, is how you feeling right now? What do you have to do for the rest of your day?
Feeling pretty good. Just want to pretty much just get back in the swing of things. I got more work I got to do, more hiring, and yeah,
That's good, man. What are you hiring
ready
for?
for it. Sales roles. So I'm currently hiring to get cold callers and DM appointment setters. So then we can just basically try and scale this thing up as much as
Good luck for that, brother.
Yeah. What's
for
your
sure.
plans for the rest of the day?
Right now, I gotta plan out a vacation, or I don't know if it's gonna be a vacation or if it's just gonna be me just traveling for I don't know how long. But right now, I'm just planning out that, and then try to stay on top of everything else. So the business, this podcast, obviously, and life in general, taking care of myself, health wise, and all that while traveling. I know traveling is a bit more challenging because you're always on the move and time zones and all that, but we'll see, bro. Take it little by little.
Yeah. We'll see what happens, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, sir. All right, we can close it out.
If it, I reckon that was like a really good episode.